Hey, welcome back to another video. This is the Goldie Electric kit from Bar Mills Models. It's actually two buildings. They refer to them as the brick building and the clapboard building. Here's the brick building, which we actually did in another video. And here is the clapboard building, which is the subject of this build video. Let's see what's in the bag. We also have some resin detail pieces, some graphics, some more plastic details, and some metal details. I've started on the bracing, so here's a wall with the bracing applied. Some of the pieces get this side trim piece, which is the 1/16 inch. And since this is going to be painted, it's a really good idea to go over it with some 4/0 steel wool, just a couple times. And that removes any little splinters that might be on there. Once you paint it, those become really noticeable, and you can even feel it in the steel wool. The first time you go over it, it's a little bit rough. And then after like two passes, it's instantly much smoother. So that's a really good idea to prep that wood. I'm just going to continue with the bracing, and then I think the next step will be painting. I've attached all the bracing to the wall pieces. I sprayed them with the gray enamel to seal the wood to help prevent warping. Then I airbrushed a couple different colors of brown acrylic over the enamel. I sprayed the pieces with Tester's Dull Coat lacquer to prevent any damage from the washes that I'm going to apply next. Now I'm going to apply a fairly heavy wash of Folk Art Barnwood acrylic paint. The gray wash is dried, and now I'm going to use a sponge to apply Folk Art Wicker White, and this is the main color of the building. And I found that when you use a sponge, it's a good idea to get kind of a large surface area and then get rid of paint until you are down to a coverage that you like. And because I'm using white paint, I think it helps to have a black base, so I can kind of look here and see what the kind of coverage is. And also, as you blot, you want to go up and down. You want to make sure you don't do a side-to-side motion. And you also want to get the edges, any exposed edges. It's better to do too little than too much, because you can always come back and add more. I've masked off the walls so that I can add the green to the lower part of the walls. This would be the accent color. It's the same green that I used in the brick building. It's Americana Evergreen. And I'm going to apply it with a sponge. Because the windows and doors are plastic, applying that cheap acrylic paint with a sponge really just made blobs. And so I smoothed it out with a paintbrush. And now I'm going to use this Vallejo dark brown wash to add some color to the windows. And in this case, because it's plastic, I want to use a good quality wash. When I go to the wood, I will use I'll go back to the cheaper acrylic. But I found that on plastic, using that cheap craft store acrylic just really doesn't work very well. Here are my wall pieces with the masking tape removed. And now I want to give a really light wash of brown. In this case, I'm using Americana traditional burnt umber. You might wonder how I know what color to use, and I sort of don't. This one I used once before and I liked the way it looked, so I'm going with it again. But it's mostly just guessing, and the worst case scenario is you have to repaint everything. I find that it really helps to have a makeup sponge available and then just suck up any excess. So that's really sort of the look that I'm going for. I'm just trying to take the white from being white to being dirty white and muting the green a little bit. I started assembly of the walls, and that was pretty straightforward. And then I went to add these trim pieces, and that was fine up until this cap piece, which actually turned out to be too short for the building. And I kind of figure out what I did wrong. I just think it was too short. So what I did is I cut out a little extra section from the same piece of cardstock that had the sticky back, and I put it in the top, and that left this pretty prominent gap, which I'm going to fill with some putty. I'm just using Tamiya gray putty. And I'm going to have to do some repainting on this anyway, so it doesn't really bother me that I'm doing this. These are my doors and windows, and the green is pretty heavy on them, so I want to hit them with some burnt umber. I'm using the Americana burnt umber and a sponge just to give a little bit of weathering and chipped paint effect. Some of these pieces are wood, some are plastic. On the subject of the doors, this door actually did not fit in its location here. There was an extra board along the side which I had to trim off. It might have been that this door fit into this location if you didn't add these trim pieces. But if you add the trim pieces, then you have to take a little bit off the width of the door. So that might have been intentional on their part, or it just might have been a mismeasurement. I went through some of my old pictures and found some pictures of some old houses with some chip paint, kind of like what we're doing here on this building. So here's an example, old house, and you can see that on the side wall there's pretty large areas of solid white, but the front wall, or the wall that we're looking at here, is really missing a lot of paint. So you can see it's kind of inconsistent across the building as to what the look is. Here's another old house. This one, the side wall is pretty chipped up bad, and then there's a section in the front under the porch that is very chipped up. But you can see that on the front and the other areas, it's mostly gray underneath the chipping. And here's a close-up of that building, showing the really significant chipping under the porch area and on the side. I did some touch-up painting on the area where I had to patch over this trim. And also, after I put on the trim, I had to do some touch-up painting. I had to add a little bit of white around there, because when I had first gone through with the white, I didn't really get enough on there. So now I need to go through with the brown wash that I had done previously and make this match the other areas that I did the wash. And also, I had forgotten to paint this area. Once the roof goes on, this area is exposed, so I need to wash this. And I'm going to put on weathering powders next. So that's going to help to bring everything together into a single color. Okay, so to attach these double doors, you have to peel off the sticky backing and stick them on some extra piece of card or wood or something from the kit, because they're just slightly too small to really be glued into the opening. It's time to add some weathering powder. So this is my weathering station, and I'm going to use this color of gray. And I no longer remember who the maker is of this powder. Well, that just totally fell into the thing way more than I wanted it to. I like to use makeup brushes to apply the powder. Now this pad has a little bit of black, and the black just goes on really heavy. So you can just see right there a bit of the sample. So I'm going to get some of that off. I really need a fatter brush for that one. This black is from MIG, and I don't think MIG exists anymore. I'm going to spray it with Tester's Dull Coat, and that usually tones down the effect a little bit. So let's take a look at what it looks like now. Front, I guess that's the back, and the front, and that side that has a lot of black on it, and the office building. And we'll see what they look like after the dull coat is applied. I'm working on the roof, and I've done one half already. I've sprayed the other half with spray adhesive. And these are strips of construction paper, black construction paper, which has been painted gray with enamel spray paint, and then black over top of that. And the technique for this comes from a Jensen video on doing tar paper roofs. So you can check out that video. But I also show how to make these in my video on the Bar Scale Models Hollis Pest Control Kit. So you can check out that video as well. So these strips are about 1 centimeter wide. Well, not about 1 centimeter wide. I measured them to be 1 centimeter wide. The build in Hollis Pest Control, I used white glue to glue the strips to the cardboard. And I didn't like that because it warped the cardboard too much. So for this one, I am trying the spray adhesive for the first time. On the back side, I'm cutting one side completely flush with the cardboard, and the other side I'm letting it overhang a little bit. So the overhang side will go over here, and I don't know how much I want it to overhang. So I just need to add a strip on top. I'm working on the flat roof section now for the office. I sprayed the card with spray adhesive. I have some strips of black construction paper which I've sprayed with gray enamel spray paint. You could just use gray paper, but I didn't have any, so I went with black. And I want to attach them to the card. So now I'm going to take a black Sharpie and I'm going to draw down the lines of the seams. I want kind of squiggly lines because this is the tar seam holding the paper together. So it would not be put on neat, so I'm not going to draw it neat. Here is my flat roof section after I've applied weathering powders, and I sprayed it with some Tester Dull Coat, and I added a little bit of a brown wash to it. So I'm ready to attach it to its section of the building. I've added some bracing on the underside just to keep it flat, and some bracing here just to give it an extra gluable space. They give you this piece of straw for a stovepipe, which I cut to the length that I wanted, and you attach it to this square piece of wood, and it goes on the roof. But I couldn't really figure out how to attach it to the wood. I tried using epoxy, but it really just didn't hold well enough because there's no surface area. So I figured out that one of these squares is just the right size to stick in here, and really you don't even have to glue that. So I'm going to glue the square stick to the board, and then once that dries I'll just slide the stovepipe on top of it. The other reason that this is a good idea is the stovepipe is very difficult to cut completely at a right angle, and so when you mount it on, the crookedness is very noticeable. This way I can see that this stick is going to be at a pretty good right angle, and so when I put the stovepipe on, it will still be at a right angle. Here's my completed stovepipe. I spray painted it with a silver color, which is now pretty much obliterated, and then I did some rust weathering using the washes and other techniques that you've seen me do before. And so now I'm ready to attach it. For the sample build that was in the photo and in the instructions, they added some other details to the stovepipe, and this is just one of the things I find aggravating is when they do a sample build, they really should use only the parts that are available in the kit. I think they added some stuff that wasn't in the kit, and the instructions didn't really say much about it. You know, like companies like Tamiya or Walthers or whatever, you know, they might build a scene with their kit, but the kit itself is usually built only with the pieces that actually come with it. So I kind of wish that the craftsman companies would follow that as well. These are my other roof details. So this stovepipe, this base actually did come with the kit, and it was odd because this hole is in the wrong side for the angle to match the roof. So, for example, like that, for it to be straight, you have to use this shallower slope. If you were to do it this way, it just doesn't fit the slope of the roof. Then for these two roof details, I had to build my own mounts. It didn't include any mounts. So again, I kind of wish they would have included all of the parts necessary to build this thing. Now, kind of in their defense, they put this piece here But considering the size of this building, this little room area, I don't see how that necessarily fits right above the doorway. So it's kind of an odd design. So I built my own, and I'm going to attach those to the roof. I'm finishing up the details, looking for any defects, anything I want to fix. One thing I want to do is to add some pastels to the roof. These are my pastels. These are soft pastels. I believe the brand is Artist Touch, and I got them in Hobby Lobby. And I'm using a brush that has most of the bristles cut off. So you take an old brush that's not really good anymore and you cut off the bristles. And it's a pretty subtle effect. It doesn't go on real heavy. So you just get some on here, sort of streak it down as you see fit. So it's much more subtle than what you've seen with the weathering powders. And in this case, I'm not going to spray anything over it to seal it because there's not a lot of powder going on. It's only going to be on the roof, really. And the anything I use to seal it seems to just completely obliterate the effect of the powders. I'm going to have to do a video or something to find a good way to seal powders onto a model like this. But until that time, I'm just going to leave these open. Another important consideration about spraying at this point is anything that you spray on, Tester's Dull Coat or acrylic sealer or Tamiya Flat Clear is another good one. They will fog your windows. So really, I found that once you've put your windows on, you can't spray the whole kit. You can spray and avoid hitting the windows, but any other area, you have to be very careful. So I think this is it. I just need to look for any more final flaws. I'm sure the close-ups will reveal some. And I need to add the sign so that I have a sign to go on the roof, and I think that will be it.